webinar is all about digital channels. So we're going to be talking about how you can be found by and engage with your customers online. We'll give you a really great overview of what all the different digital channels are and how you should be using them for your business. For example, are you taking advantage of all the free channels that are available for you? And do you understand really who it is that you're talking to and how best to find that out? We've got two guests here this morning who've got lots of great information, advice and experience to share with us. First of all, we've got Leanne Mallon, who is the Senior Marketing Manager, Digital Channels at Visit Scotland. Leanne, good morning.
Yep.
Afternoon. You tell us what it is you do at Visit Scotland.
Yep, so Digital Channels is really overseeing our various bits of social and email marketing activity, SEO, paid search and paid social advertising, and working really closely with our content team.
Fantastic. So that's basically all the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about today.
Yes.
So you're a perfect expert to have here. So thank you for joining us. Also here we've got Martin Anderson, who's the owner of the Cregatton House and Guest House. No, what's it called?
Cregatton House and Courtyard and Derrybeg B&B in Pitlochry.
It's quite a long title. I got my tongue tied there. Award-winning, no less.
Cregatton House, yes.
Yes, yep. Fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. I think Guest House of the Year last year.
Guest House of the Year, and we've in the past with Visit Scotland being the Scottish Thistle Award winner for Best Guest House as well.
That's brilliant. Well, that's really important, but also important is being across these digital channels. Why is that important for you to be able to manage that?
It's another way of being able to communicate with our guests on a daily basis. We're on, I think it's about 10 different social media platforms, and it gives you something to say to all your potential guests, old guests, current guests on a daily basis. So it's fresh and conversational.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about having that ongoing dialogue, and it is really a 365 days a year, 24/7 job, which is quite challenging. So really knowing how to best manage that for your business in a way that's effective and efficient is really important. We want you to be involved with this session. We've got Leanne here as our expert, and Martin as well has got lots of experience to share with you. So please do ask your questions. We've got the chat box just to the right of the screen there, and producer Richard is going to be standing by to take those questions. Richard.
Thanks, Julia. That's right, yeah, I am here. Nice to be back, by the way, very nice to be back. Do feel free to join in anything that you've got here. Oh, there's Linda. Hi there from Lewis Longhouse. Hi Linda, I think we've got a video of you later coming up in this programme. But do feel free to get involved, any questions, any chat, and I'll get them to the panel. And I know that at the moment we've got over 60 of you watching, so please, we've got people from guest houses, from visitor experiences and all sorts of things all over the country. So do get in touch and I will put my questions to the panel and to Julia. Okay, see you later.
So please, yes, do ask your questions. That's what these guys are here for. First of all, I guess the first question is, what are the digital channels? What do we mean by digital channels?
Well, digital channels is quite a broad term and can be really used to describe any touch point that a business may have with your customer online. So any way in which a potential visitor could interact with your business.
Yeah, so that makes sense, doesn't it? But that can be everything from social media, from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, through to email.
Yeah,
email
absolutely.
marketing.
I would look at it really in terms of your owned digital channels. So that could be your website and your blog. Also your email marketing program, which you may run to your own customer database. I'd also look at it in terms of your earned digital channels, so social media, so yes, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, YouTube and all the others. And I'd look at it in terms of your paid digital channel activity as well, so the work you may do with paid search, paid social advertising, display advertising, and then even more broadly looking at things like affiliate marketing programs or partnership marketing.
It's kind of daunting, isn't it? Because there's so much out there that you really need to be thinking about and managing. I guess, Martin, you said you were across 10 different channels. Are you active on all of them all the time?
Yes, and I think that's a key thing. There's so many people put a message out today to say, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, and you actually go to their page and see Christmas 2012's package. So they've obviously watched a seminar or been somewhere to be told to gone on, and then not done anything with it. So the digital aspect in the two small businesses that I've got is right at the very heart of our business when I think about it. If you draw like a mind map, you'd have all of these social media platforms and TripAdvisor and our email, and then everything else that we do and all the business that we get comes from that now, because it's not really coming from paper-based product or newspaper, and it's all coming from online.
So it's really key. I mean, it is driving businesses, isn't it? Martin's obviously really doing well if he's managing to keep fresh content across 10 different channels, but not everybody's got the time or the resources or indeed the skills to do that. What do you think is the important first step if you're going to try and get across the different digital channels? How do you pick what's right for you?
I think in terms of selecting what's right for your business, the first thing is to look at what is your objective. What are you hoping that piece of activity will deliver for your business, and what would success look like for you? And also look at the resources that you have at your disposal. So yes, what time do you have to invest in the activity? But also what marketing budget do you have available, and what skill sets do you have in-house as well? Do you have the capabilities to deliver digital channel activity yourself, or perhaps is there a skill gap that you might want to look to address before venturing into digital channel activity?
So what are the main channels really that are really useful and relevant for tourism businesses, particularly in Scotland? What are the main ones that people should be thinking about being on if they're not already doing that?
I think definitely social media, Facebook and Instagram, increasingly very visual
Twitter.
platforms. Twitter, yes. And I think those offer great opportunities for businesses to get exposure. I think social media can be a fantastic tool for that top of funnel awareness driving activity, and social is also a fantastic tool. We were chatting a little earlier about it, but in terms of capturing those user reviews and positive feedback and getting people to share all of that positive review about your business in terms of online word of mouth is really, really valuable for small businesses.
And what are the different audiences then on those different channels, those social channels?
That's the tricky thing, because whilst there's a lot of duplication in what I do. So if I put a picture on Facebook, I'll generally have that on Flickr, have that on LinkedIn, have that on Instagram, and you'll find that we all have our favorite social media platforms. So it's specifically, somebody might see something you do on Google Plus, but they'll never actually see it on LinkedIn because they're not actually there. So different types of customers have different types of favorite platforms. I've just got the train down here today from Pitlochry, and the whole carriage, everybody has their phone out or their iPad out, and they're all looking at things that interest them via their own app or things. So you can do duplicate content because it's appealing to different people on different platforms. Very few people will be consistently accessing 10 different social media platforms on the minute.
I guess it's that thing of, we are the visitors, they're human beings just like us, and think about how we are accessing, how do we book our own holidays and how do we go on there, and putting yourself in that mindset. How can you find out if you're trying to target a specific audience, or that your business appeals to a certain demographic? How can you find out which channel is going to be the most effective one then for you to use?
I think if you have social channels that you're using at the moment, then I'd absolutely say go into the analytics of those social platforms, and that will tell you a little bit of information about who your audiences are and who's currently engaging with your business. And also from a paid advertising point of view, that's one of the benefits, I guess, from social media is the platforms and networks hold so much information on their users. That means you can be incredibly targeted with your paid advertising activity. So if you know a certain audience is your real target demographic, for example, if that's 45 plus, then you can be that targeted in terms of who you're reaching with your paid social advertising, which can make it very, very cost effective.
On Facebook, when you sponsor a post, and you can do this for £1, you can take a really nice picture, pay Facebook £1, and then when you go into their setup, say, right, who do you want to promote this to? And it gives you age groups, it gives you demographics, it gives you parts of the world, it gives you, is it friends of friends you're interested in, or is it brand new? And all of this, for £1, you can then promote that picture, and it's brilliant. Where else in this day and age can you advertise your business for £1 for a day?
I think I think it's a really valid point as well, because Facebook and a lot of the other digital channel social platforms as well are starting to really restrain how much exposure brands can get and how much businesses can get. So in terms of just putting your post out there, increasingly, I think businesses are finding it very difficult to get that post in front of the people who
to cut
choose to
through.
follow them. Yeah. So to use paid in that way can be really effective in terms of getting your message out there.
Well, you spoke there a little bit about analytics, and I guess understanding who's coming to your website is a good place to start if you know what your clients are like. So how do you get into that? How easy is that to do, to really understand who your audience is?
We go on Google Analytics probably twice a month. Very easy to do. Whoever provides your website will be able to help you find that. And it can be death by data because there's literally just so much. I'm just a small little guest house owner. I don't need to know a lot of the stuff that Google can give me. But the key chunky bits of information, you can rank up to 1,000 different websites that are coming to your website from around the world, and the top 5 or the top 10 are always things like TripAdvisor. Visit Scotland's website is one of the big referrals of bringing people from the Visit Scotland website to my website. But then Facebook and Twitter, Pinterest is very, very big. And it's very useful when you get a phone call from somebody ringing you up saying, "Hi, we're from ScottishTourism.netinternational.co.uk," and you think, really? For only £50 you should advertise with us. And you can go through Google Analytics and see that they've only given you one link. So really, is it worth paying? It's not worth paying them the money. So use it as a way of being able to find out who's worth supporting and who's worth advertising with, because that's where you're getting the traffic from.
Absolutely. So you can be much more efficient with your budgets and make them work
It helps,
much harder.
definitely. It gives you advice, really. Yeah.
So you can have a look and see where people are finding you and what's proving the most effective, and maybe focus on that channel.
Yeah, absolutely. So it helps you see, I guess, the performance of the different channels, so you can compare which ones you should be doing more of and maybe what you should be doing a bit less of. It also gives you some really good audience insights as well in terms of where your visitors are coming from by market, again, which demographics they are, and which pieces of content on your website they're most engaged with. So again, if you're thinking about creating more content, it's a good place to start to see what people are engaging with on your site already.
On Google Analytics as well, you can break it down by city. So, for us, I know Edinburgh, being so close to Pitlochry, is one of the biggest cities that people look at us from, but then followed by London, and then followed by Los Angeles. It really is global. You just think, wow, there's that many people from the US that are visiting our website. So it really is a fascinating thing to get into and to delve and dig into.
And you were saying there's free Google tutorials on getting into those analytics, which are fairly straightforward and really guide you through. Also, as I mentioned earlier, there's the DTS initiative, and there's support from them for businesses. They do some health checks actually as part of the programme, so that's another thing if you're looking for a little bit of help there. I've got a question from Facebook. We asked earlier on over the week for questions for the panel, and Scott at Sky Echo Bells got in touch. He said, "We're registered and on Visit Scotland's website for our glamping business on Sky," and it looks fantastic. I checked out your Facebook page, it was very good. They say, we use Facebook and Instagram. How do we best utilise the reach of potential customers within Visit Scotland's social media platforms? Thanks for that question, Scott. And I guess that's probably a question a lot of businesses will want to know. How can they piggyback? How can they take advantage of those connections?
Yeah.
So how best to do that?
Well, I'd start by saying always use the hashtag Scott Spirit. That's the best way of getting the content in front of our social team. They are really spoiled for choice when it comes to Scotland content. We get a huge, vast array of content shared with us on a daily basis, and the team will try and cherry pick the best pieces to share socially. So absolutely share on hashtag Scott Spirit. And that also gives an increased chance of getting onto the visitscotland.com website as well. We curate and display content which is shared with us on the hashtag across different sections of the site. So there's an opportunity to get things shared with the team socially through our own channels, but also get it featured on the website. And the other thing I'd recommend to businesses is to go and have a look at our I Know community, which is on...
I know. Okay.
And that's, again, a really good resource that visitors will use when planning their trip. And they'll go in there and they'll ask questions. For example, I'm going to Skye for a long weekend. Can you give me tips on the best places to visit? And the idea being that it's the community who will answer that rather than Visit Scotland. So again, a great opportunity to go in there and just contribute to those types of discussions and to talk up the area and really give that local voice in terms of what the best things to do are.
I think Google Maps has a sort of a locals guide
Local guides, that's
guide
right,
feature
yeah.
as well, which is another thing which you could be doing. I became one of those after I heard a session on it. It's quite interesting. You can be part of that discussion. Richard, any questions coming in from the chat box?
Thanks, Julia. I actually don't have any questions coming in from the chat box, but I do feel a bit like a sort of old-fashioned local radio DJ giving out shout-outs to everyone. There's lots of people watching. We've got people in Orkney. I'm getting weather reports from everybody. That's fantastic. It sounds like it's stormy in Dornoch. Joan Bishop is with us. Hi, Joan. Nice to have you with us. But everyone's just intently listening and taking everything on board. And I found what you were saying earlier about using, the thing that you said about paying Facebook that money, and you can then just go in behind the scenes of that to look at targeting certain groups of people and certain things. Absolutely fascinating. And the whole analytics, like we've been to a few talks and heard all about this analytics stuff. And I think that's something that people are generally wanting to sort of know a little bit more about. And I sort of feel like I need it explained to me a bit more, like I'm a 5-year-old, when you talk about getting in behind the sites to see these referrals and what have you. Anyway, so any questions that you've got? Riona said, a question has just come in from Riona White, who's at the Drimnin Distillery, is just asking if you have to be a member of Visit Scotland to be able to utilise the services you were talking about earlier.
Leanne?
No, you don't. So there's various opportunities that businesses can look to get involved with Visit Scotland. So absolutely share on the hashtag and get posts in front of the social team. Contribute to the I Know community. You have to register and sign up through the website, but that's free to anyone to do so. And we have other resources as well. So for businesses who perhaps want to get access to content but are perhaps not in a position to go and create content themselves for whatever reason, we have things like a digital media library that give businesses access to a whole host of photography assets that they can use.
Is that do you charge for that?
No,
it's
business can have access. We have our YouTube videos, which again are on the web, on our YouTube channel, and are available for businesses to share or to embed in their own websites. Okay. And likewise, we have things like ebook assets, again, that businesses are welcome to embed into their own site and utilise as they wish.
So if you don't have a huge budget, you can still be using some of that content that already exists and taking advantage of that resource.
Absolutely.
Martin, we spoke about getting involved with the hashtag as well. You that's something that you try and have a look at to be part of that conversation when people are using the hashtag, for example, Pitlochry on Twitter.
Absolutely. I'm always, just about every post I do, I hashtag Pitlochry, Perthshire in Scotland. There are a number of websites you can go on. I think it might be Twitter. Well, certainly there's trending, and there's certain sites you can go on to find out what is popular. I think certainly Instagram is one of them, where what are the popular hashtags. I must admit, I don't fully understand them. There's some hashtags you click on, and there is nobody who's ever done hashtag not on a Sunday morning, or some of them I don't really quite get. I like to go for the chunky ones that I know is going to get my content.
Where do you find them?
Out there. Certainly the Scott Spirit one we've used quite a lot, and it's just today I've just took a picture of that beautiful park you've got behind the office here, and just done hashtag were we Stormount or Marchmount, where it came up on the location. Click that, and then within 3 minutes of walking back here, 4 people had liked it who'd never followed me before. What's a guy from Craigatton House, Pitlochry, doing in the centre of Edinburgh? So it's very powerful in that respect. And it's all about the content. You can get the content for free, but don't be afraid of what may surprise you as content. I can spend £1,000 on a bedroom at Craigatton House, brand new carpet, different Farrow and Ball colours on the wall, and get a few people to like it. I can walk down to the paper shop in the morning and see a mother duck with 6 baby ducklings, or a beautiful sunrise, photograph that, and get 300 people liking it, and you just think, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it just captures people's imagination, and certain pictures will identify with people more.
It's that emotional connection, as we were talking about.
Just what's cute, and having it at the right time of day as well, though. I find very much there's certain dead zones on social media when everybody's at work or everybody's asleep. I find first thing in the morning very popular. between 1 and 2 o'clock, very popular, and then nighttime, because I know that's when I check my mobile phone.
Yeah.
And how many people wake up in the morning and the first thing they do is check to see what's happened overnight on their social media feeds.
Well, it is different across the different channels, and I don't know if we've quite nailed down kind of who's hanging out where, you know, in terms of the channels. Facebook, is that still women, a little bit older, mums? That would seem to be the last
I think
bit
it's
of research
certainly
I
number
said.
one, isn't it? It's the most popular.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
still the largest of the social platforms.
So if you were going to only do one, then that would probably be the one
I
to
would-
choose.
yeah.
If I were a small business, that's one I would probably focus in on. I think it gives a lot of opportunities in terms of the types of posts that you can put on there, and it's increasingly that visual image and video-led sort of platform. So it's very good for showcasing local areas and businesses.
Yeah. So that's Facebook. Twitter, more business to business, or do you find that you are finding customers?
Different nationalities, and again, different people are into different things. We get more booking inquiries on the day from people using Twitter. You can link your Facebook posts to then duplicate themselves on Twitter, and that saves you a bit of time if you're
Is
just
that
starting
a
out.
good idea though? Because do the different audiences want different content?
I find I do it, but I also would put the same post onto Twitter because I like to see the photograph on Twitter. Mildly, it annoys me when people do that, and you've then got on Twitter got to click back to Facebook to see what the picture is. It's so much nicer when the picture is on Twitter. So it's a slightly lazy way of doing it, and I actually like the picture to be on Twitter. But you can save yourself a bit of time. Personally, I don't see a real female-male age group difference. It's definitely younger people. I think there are a lot of older people who are still afraid of it, and like that point I made earlier, people get themselves on and then don't do anything with it is evidence of that. So I think it's definitely, but then my mother's obviously my mother, and she got an iPad for Christmas a few years ago, and she's one of the biggest Facebook fans. Silver surfer, speaking to her friends around the world, so she really got into it.
Yeah, I think the perception of social media being for young people has really changed in the last couple of years. I think businesses are recognising the opportunities there, and it is quite a broad demographic which are on these. I think you have newer social channels like Snapchat, which are potentially skewed more towards younger audiences, but I'd say across Facebook, Twitter, it is quite a broad demographic that's there. So if you are trying to target an older demographic, you will be able to find them on social.
And if you get into those analytics, you'll be able to see, you get a better sense of really who it is that's on there.
Mm-hmm.
What about Instagram and Pinterest that you mentioned as well? What's the audience on there? Who can be able to connect to on those platforms?
Again, quite varied, I would say, quite a broad demographic. And again, it can come down to if you want to do some paid targeting on there, you can be quite targeted as to which demographics you're talking to. I think with those channels, it's just considering, do you have the content to publish on there? Do you have access to enough high quality images? Because I think particularly with Instagram, the expectation and the standard is really high. Yeah, very, very high. So it's just considering are those the right channels for you in terms of do you have the content and enough to publish through those.
The hashtag aspect I find is very important with Instagram. It's one of my favourite social. I waste hours during the day just scrolling through because
spend, not waste.
Well, yes, spend, because you find the longer you're on it, the more relevant it becomes to you. Especially when you just go under the search function, where Instagram then says, you've liked these things in the past, so we think you might like these, and there's just a fascinating picture board of all different. Yeah, I do like that, and I do like that, and I do like that. But using the hashtag gets lots of people following you that have never heard of you before around the world because of a certain picture.
And hashtags, if anyone doesn't quite understand a hashtag, it's the hash sign and then a word or a phrase which other people are using and tagging their posts with, so that if you click on that hashtag, you can see all the posts related to that.
Yes, so if you were interested in Aviemore, for example, you would just go hashtag Aviemore, and it would then be everything. And there is a bit of rubbish on there, kissed a boy in Aviemore, kissed a girl in Aviemore, had a wedding in Aviemore, got drunk in Aviemore. But then there's also, this is...
I want to see all those things.
Well, all those things, yeah. But then it's like, here's Cairngorm Mountain in Aviemore, and here is us feeding the reindeers in Aviemore. Here's us on Loch Morlich, Aviemore. So it's all a mixture. And that kind of demonstrates the type of customer that's using it, from your parents taking beautiful pictures to people getting, drinking in the pub.
Is that Instagram or Pinterest?
That's Instagram.
Instagram, yeah. And you can use loads of hashtags on Instagram because you've got lots of space.
But like I said, some of them I don't quite understand because some of them you click on them and they don't go anywhere. There isn't
Sometimes
anybody.
people just make them up, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
they do.
And there's nobody else is using
well,
them.
that's trending, I guess, isn't it? That's clever when people do that. Personally, for my investment in my time, I'm only interested in the heavyweight ones that'll get my picture in that.
What are good hashtags then to use across?
Scott Spirit's certainly a big one. And then my local
Pitlochry.
Yeah, Pitlochry. I do Pitlochry, Perthshire, Scotland are the big three for me.
Good tips there. Well, we are talking about content, and we've been speaking to people from the tourism industry throughout Scotland about the current landscape within digital tourism. Linda McLeod-Brown, I believe, is watching. Hello, Linda. From the Outer Hebrides Tourism. She told us what she thinks is key when using digital channels.
Telling a story, a lot of the getting your message out, getting a story out, making it more for the visitor than just talking about them coming here as a destination, a holiday. It's talking much more about the stories and things they can do and and the experiences. So actually just immersing them much more in the Hebrides before they get there, rather than leave them to arrive and experience it really for themselves. And the other was the kind of the visual element of that and making it much more visual through videos and photography and tying all that together for them so they can immerse themselves again in that experience before arriving. So it's thinking about how they're planning, how they're dreaming about the holiday, and just giving them much more content and keeping that fresh before they go on holiday.
Really good point there from Linda. We really have to remember when we're engaging with people, it is about storytelling. It is about telling the tales of your local areas, using those hashtags to be part of that story, the bigger story. And storytelling is a key aspect, isn't it, of engaging on digital channels?
Yeah, absolutely. People, I don't think, want advertising. They don't want to be exposed to push messaging. They really want to be part of that story. And I think for businesses, it's getting your customers to talk up the business and talk up the local area as well as they visiting and experiencing Scotland can be really powerful in terms of driving that advocacy.
Well, Martin, you spoke about that. You've got customers who you know are never going to come back. They maybe come from Japan or somewhere that's a once-in-a-lifetime trip for them. Yeah. And yet you're still engaging with them on Facebook and they do become your ambassadors and help you to sell your business.
It's a nostalgic thing, isn't it? Yeah, they came to Scotland on a holiday of a lifetime 5 or 6 years ago and had a fantastic experience in castles and whiskey distilleries and
also hashtags, castles. People
yes,
love castles.
Yeah, absolutely. So they'll be following all of the Edinburgh Castle and Glenfiddich Distillery or whatever, and I'm sure they're all back home now in California and Sydney and whatever, and constantly reminiscing and engaging with these people like they do with me. When there's a picture of the Highland Games, they'll go, yes, back in 2009 we went there and we had a great day, it was a warm, and I then, the thing you have to do in any Facebook seminaring will tell you, it's somebody who is talking to you. If you don't then talk back to them, and Facebook grades you now on this, on your response, please talk back to them, because if somebody's taking the time to comment on a post, and I see it so often, the owners don't then say, oh, I'm glad you hear that, yes, just however silly the comment might be, you have to go back and engage with them.
Yeah, and it is that conversation, isn't it? It's not just a case of, well, I'll just respond when I get a bad review. It's too late then. You need to be having a conversation. Yeah, Martin, how much time do you think you spend? We were chatting about this before, and you said you've got your mobile phone and the notifications on, so it's constantly.
Yes, like I said at the beginning, it's the core of everything I do across my two businesses. So and I very much think that if you're going to get into this and you put a foot onto this roundabout, then you're in. And the ones that do very well in it are the ones who are consistently interacting, feeding it with new content and then interacting with it. So, well, I don't know whether I'd want to embarrass myself and tell you how it's always on. It's in my briefcase in the other room there. If there's anyone who's commented while I've been here, I will go straight back to them. And they are now. I think Facebook now does give me a grading on my two businesses.
Usually replies within
my response rate, and I know that does my page good, and it's showing probably with all these other places that aren't interacting at all, that mine is, is live and is current.
And if they're looking to make a booking, if they see that you respond quickly, they're much more likely to engage with your business versus another business who doesn't do that. I believe Richard has got a quick question that's come in from the chat box.
That's right. Thank you, Julia. We've got loads of people chatting, but most people are just sort of saying hello still and telling me what the weather's like where they are. And Linda, you looked fantastic in that video. Managed to make the building site we filmed you in look acceptable. But it was Linda. We're just touching on. I was so interested in listening to Martin talking about how much time it takes him up with these things, and there's a certain addiction to it. I think once you start getting those little red dots and those little responses, it becomes your endorphins are released and you become quite hooked. But just to go back a step, we were talking earlier about Google Analytics, and I mentioned about feeling like we're just still scratching the surface there. Linda's come in actually with a question just to say, what are the key things that we should be looking at on that dashboard that you get when you go into the Google Analytics?
Okay, well, Leanne, I'll ask you first, and then Martin, you using it obviously all the time. What would your advice be then for the key things to look for in the dashboard?
Key things in the dashboard for me would be understanding where your traffic is coming from. So how are people finding your website? So is it organic search? Is it your social media posts or your email campaign, your advertising? So understanding where people are coming from would be the first thing.
Is that really clear? Is that really obvious on the dashboard for you to be able to see and get that information? You're not overwhelmed with data?
Yeah, I would say when you're getting your analytics set up, whoever's installing and doing the technical side of things for you, get their assistance potentially in getting the dashboard set up so you have some reports basically ready set up, so you just have to log in and refresh the data and you can see the reports coming through. So once that's set up, then it's very easy to find that information.
So how people are finding you?
How people are finding you. The other important thing to look at setting up are some conversion goals. And again, that just allows you to really easily see what the key conversions are on your website. So if that's an accommodation booking or if it's somebody subscribing to your newsletter, you can measure all of these things as goals so you can see just how many people are converting, and again you can tie that back to see where did they come from and which ones are driving the most valuable conversions for you.
Business, money, bottom
Yes.
line. That's what it's all about, isn't it, Martin?
The first thing that I would advise everybody to do is always there's a little date box in the top right hand corner, set it to the last 12 months. If you don't, it'll just give you, I think, the last week, and that can kind of skew things. You don't really want to be looking at a narrow time frame. So go to the top date box and say, what data would you like to mine? That's all right, I'd like to look at the last 12 months of my website. So you change those dates and then it'll refresh itself. And it's a tricky thing because there's loads of different titles down the left-hand side, but I think I'll always go then to the acquisition tab, and then I think it's all traffic. And then a page will appear, and then again I set it, you can then look at how many of your traffic referrals you want to look at, from 10, I think it goes up to 1,000. By the time that's the 1,000 one's kind of irrelevant, but you can do that, and then that's telling you the websites. But yeah, like you say, you can then where they're coming from, where they go after your website. So of all the people who come, how long they spend on your website, what the bounce rate is, what's the number one pages that they look at on your website. For ours, it's the breakfasts, the landing page, and then breakfasts.
So make sure you get that right, and it means you can focus your attention.
Well, it then shows you that there's some of the pages that you have on your website are irrelevant, because you can see 10 people in the last year have looked at it. I spend more time though just looking at that as to where I'm getting my other traffic and what pages on my website are performing the best.
Mm-hmm. So analytics is so important, and obviously the content is really important too. I guess what's the thing we need to bear in mind before we create content, Leanne? Is it a case of where it's going to go, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're getting into the realms of creating content, you should do so with a plan as to how you're going to use that content. What audience is it for? Who are you talking to? And also how you're going to promote that content. So is it going to sit on your website? Are you going to use it on social media channels? Are you going to use it in your email marketing program? Or do you have partners who are going to help you distribute that content? So have that thought through before you launch into creating content.
Spend any time or money,
and keep it fresh. I don't know, when you look at websites, how many times do you go on a website and it clearly hasn't been updated for a few years? Your heart sinks, and I probably guarantee you'll go somewhere else. So trying as hard as you can on your website to make sure that if you're promoting local events, I just recently went through mine. We had, the Enchanted Forest in Pitlochry. We had the Pitlochry Festival Theatre doing Scrooge at Christmas. I just made sure that they were either removed, the ones that were no longer relevant, and replaced with something fresher or coming up, or I changed the date from the New Year's street party, which is didn't happen this year, but will happen this year. Make sure it's now not saying New Year's Day 2017, it's saying New Year's Day 2018. It's constantly,
Little things like that,
it
though,
just
make a
shows
big
you care.
difference. Yeah.
With housekeeping.
I think
Well,
sorry, I was just going to add, I think that's a really good way of just repurposing some existing content as well. So a lot of businesses will do what you mentioned there, and they will write a piece of content, put it up when the event passes, and they take it down and then start again the next year.
Yeah.
If it is a reoccurring event, then it's actually really beneficial to have
An
one
archive.
page which is up all year round and it's evergreen content, and you're just refreshing it with the dates and the most recent details.
It's easier to do that, definitely, yes.
Fantastic. I think Richard's got a question for us that's come in. Richard?
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, there's just a quick question here from Andrew. I don't know where you're from, Andrew. First person who's not told me where you're from and what the weather is. But he just wants to know what's the best advice for getting rid of spam traffic. He says he's getting a lot of spam traffic through his site, particularly appearing in Google Analytics. Is there any way of blocking that? Martin, it sounds like with all your time you're spending online, have you got any advice for Andrew?
You do get a lot of spam. I mean, I must admit, there's not as much spam on email and whatnot as there used to be, Viagra and PPI, whatever. I get a lot of it on telephone still. But I don't get much spam on social media. There's a lot of sponsored posts. I do get a lot of sponsored posts for things which are not relevant to me, but you can go to the top right-hand corner of the box and come down and say, don't stop sending me this. I don't know if anybody's the same, but I mean, I do watch quite a bit of television, and if I've got to see a Money Supermarket advert with those builders and bankers, or James Corden sliding his Mercedes-Benz around on confused.com, do you see an advert far too much? Is it just me? Probably it's just me. I just now on Facebook say, look, I've seen this 1,000 times, I don't want to see it again, click it, and they'll remove it. And they actually then say why, and you can then say, it happens on Instagram as well, just said, it's not relative to me, I'm not interested in top shop clothes or whatever.
Richard, is there a little bit of clarity on that question?
Yeah, I've got a bit of clarity. It means like spammers actually hitting your site, like sort of spam bots. So like if the Google Analytics are sort of telling you who's been to visit, like how can you pick out which of those aren't real and are spammers? And he's in Glasgow and it's sunny. Thank you for clearing that up, Andrew.
Good to know. Leanne, how do you deal with that then for not real people?
Yeah, you can filter that out in your analytics traffic to give you, I guess, a truer picture in terms of your actual site sessions and filtering out the ones that are perhaps search engine bots or spam bots. So
how do you do that?
There's a filter setting in the actual setup of the analytics account. I would say to any business who are not sure what they're doing there, probably worth getting a Google Analytics accredited consultant who could do that bit of work for you. But again, it is just a case of applying some parameters to filter out that traffic in your analytics reporting.
Okay, good. Well, hopefully that has been helpful. We'll come back to the questions in a second, but we heard from Linda from the Outer Hebrides Tourism earlier about telling your story in terms of the content and how you're engaging on those digital channels. We've got another take now on how we should approach using those channels from Patrick O'Shaughnessy, who's also from Visit Scotland.
My job is not about delivering marketing, doing campaigns. It's about getting industry to understand the opportunity that's there, that it is relatively simple. They just need to, first of all, understand their target audience and then use the channels that reaches them. And in that sense, there's how do you understand that channel and really sort of get to the nitty-gritty of it. And actually the best way of doing that is use it, test it, try something, and it works. We should approach marketing to people and how we engage with our visitors. Even the mindset of 3 years ago in terms of how we communicated has changed. It's a different language. Travellers want to be thought as temporary locals, so it's that thinking rather than someone who's impacting on your lifestyle, they want to be part of your community, and that's where the visitor experience is so important, getting that better understanding what they want and delivering it really, really well. That would make Scotland very powerful in terms of an attractive destination.
That's really something that rings true, I think, the idea that visitors want to be temporary locals and they want to feel like they're part of the area. And I think it's an important thing to bear in mind when you're sort of the tone that you use on these digital channels, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is that, again, what we touched on earlier, not having a salesy branded message when you're talking to people on these channels. It's more a one-to-one and talking to people like
Personal.
locals, personal, yeah.
Personal, and that emotional connection, like you were saying, the pictures that work on your website are squirrels on the grass.
Yeah, I tried it a lot of times in the early days to promote the fact that I've got a room to sell tonight, or I'm doing an offer. Do that on your email. Target your offers and that directly to the customers you know are interested in you. But I think social media, to a degree, is predominantly entertainment. It's what people go to just to kill some time and to entertain themselves. And I found they don't really care if I've got a room to sell tonight at £100 B&B. They would rather see the sunrises and the ducks and the squirrels or the new room.
Make that connection as a human being,
anyway,
and then when they're thinking about somewhere to stay, then you'll be in their minds. I guess that's
yes. If you're giving them what they want and they enjoy it, they'll just consume it. But don't give them too much either. There are some people that do 4 or 5 posts a day. And just from the previous caller, that then gets into the realms of spam. I think as well, you've got to put content out there that you would want to receive yourself. So I don't want to hear from you 4 times a day. I just want one good quality piece every 2 or 3 days. I think is what generally you'll find works. Any more when you become just noise.
We're sort of running out of time. I would like to talk about the email marketing, because I think that's really a key channel that can be incredibly effective. But before we do, just to clarify, when we were talking about getting into the Google Analytics, you said you could get Google Analytics accredited. Yeah. How could somebody go about finding somebody that could help them in that?
So Google Analytics have an accreditation program, so people who are, I guess, qualified and certified to be able to work on your Google Analytics for you. So perhaps it's something I can send information on, and that could be circulated after.
In the email or underneath the full webinar when we put that up on the YouTube page. Okay, brilliant. So back to the email marketing. That is another channel, I guess. When we were chatting, I hadn't really thought of that as being a channel, but it could be such an efficient one, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. As a way of retaining that engagement with previous customers, and also providing that little bit more information to potentially new customers. So as you're saying, social's great for that awareness piece and for just keeping that engagement through social. Likewise with email, just keeping people interested in your brands and your business, and a great opportunity to give them a little bit more information. So it could be serving them offers when they're a little bit further down the journey and perhaps thinking about booking.
And so that's content as well, isn't it? That email is you've got to really think about how that's going to look and be consumed, I suppose. Martin, you've had a real success with this, haven't you? And actually being able to get all those addresses onto your database.
Yes,
You've
so
quite a clever little trick.
We harvest, when people come and stay at any of my 2 guest houses, in order for them to access my free to access high-speed broadband Wi-Fi, I ask them just to give us their email address. So if one person books a group of 8 people, previously I would have only had that one person's email. Now when they all come, I'll get, if it's 8 rooms, I'll get 16 people's emails. So I harvest those emails. Obviously with their permission, when I send an email out and say, look, if you don't want to send this to you anymore, just tell us and I'll take you off the list. But with email marketing, I know, with social media marketing, I don't really know who I'm sending it to. I'm sending it to the world, and some people might dislike it. Some people may stalk me and look at my content without even telling me they're looking at it. But with an email marketing campaign, it's a sniper approach. It's exactly the customer, because they've engaged with me somehow in the past. Rather than a scattergun approach.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I know they've either stayed with me, or they've asked me a question, or they've emailed me about something in the past. So it's people who I know are interested in me, and I know are interested in receiving my content. So once or twice a quarter, I'll send a newsletter out. And generally my top tip is I go back to my social media feed and I harvest out of that the most successful posts, because again, it's a different customer. It's people who might not be seeing me on that. So I see all the pictures that I've got a great deal of interaction, and I will create a nice newsletter to say, this is what's been happening in Pitlochry over the last 3 months. This is what's on at the theatre. This is what's on at Blair Castle. Rooms available, why don't you give us a call and book, and you know exactly who it's going to, and it's your core valuable thing to keep a hold of, an email database of all your customers.
And you said you went from having a few hundred people on a database to thousands just by that little trick of getting their email address when they use the Wi-Fi, which is the one thing everyone asks for as soon as they arrive. What's your Wi-Fi code? I guess the other thing, just before we wrap up, is sort of using this inbound marketing, which is where you're connecting with people rather than just saying, well, there's my website, come find me. With and online, using that with more traditional kinds of marketing, do you still need to be doing that, and how can you make that work together?
Yeah, I think if you've got a traditional marketing program which is working for you, then absolutely don't stop doing that and to move all your budget directly onto digital, but maybe try and find a way that you can start to experiment with more digital activity and really make the most of your free opportunities that are available online to you. So things like your Visit Scotland.com website listing or your TripAdvisor listing. Make the most of your owned assets. So make sure your website is mobile friendly and make sure that you're online bookable if possible. And then start to think about, okay, what more could we be doing digitally? And perhaps ring fence a small amount of your marketing budget to start testing some digital advertising opportunities.
But you can be really flexible, that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So you can start with a relatively small test budget, you can set your start and end dates, and you can test as you go. So change your audiences, change your creative that you're running with, and just take learnings in terms of how it's performing and continually tweak as you go.
Mm-hmm. And Martin, you were saying you maybe use quite a lot less of the traditional forms of marketing now.
Yes, I mean, I just think back in my lifetime, can you remember driving down a high street like Pitlochry where guest houses would say, you're probably too young, but hot and cold water and colour TV? I mean, that was what guest houses used to promote in the past. That's in my lifetime. It's moved on dramatically from that, and I think paper-based advertising now is definitely falling away. And it's all about content, and it's one of those things, no matter how big or small your business is, the more you put in it, the more you're going to get out of it, and you can spend hours and hours and hours every day and you will then get benefit from that, or you can just spend a little bit of time. But one thing I would say is if you're going to get into it, do it. Don't just do it and then forget about it. It demands it's like being a farmer. Or looking after a flock of animals, isn't it? You've got to if you buy a flock of animals, you have to look after them on a daily basis. You can't just feed them once a week or once a month. Mm-hmm. You've got to be there all the time, and that's the thing that will generate results for you in the short, medium, and longer terms.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to have to wrap things up. Leanne, is there any final bit of advice that you would give people watching in terms of how they really manage their activity on the digital channels?
Yeah, I would say don't be scared of analytics, and don't be scared to go out there and read some of the online tutorials and start to upskill if that's part of your business that you're maybe not fully up to speed on, because that's going to be really critical to assessing the performance of your digital channel activity.
Yeah, so it's finding out, it works back and forth, doesn't it? See what already is working and see where there's room for improvement, and you can use those analytics to help you make those decisions and come up with a strategy. Mm-hmm. Richard, before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh no, I just wanted to say goodbye to everybody who's in the chat room. We're ending this broadcast with just exactly the same number of people as we started with, so everyone stayed with us throughout the whole thing, so you guys must have been doing something right over there. Kathy has got in touch from Orkney to say that her video stopped, so I thought we could have a quick chat about her while she's not watching. And just to say thanks very much for everyone, and just as I've put in the chat box, a reminder is that we're putting quite a lot of content now onto the HIE's Facebook page, so do check out all of that stuff. We're putting on little clips from previous seasons, and we look forward to seeing you next week, and look forward to the global weather report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard, and thanks to everybody for watching today. Thank you very much to my panel, to Leanne Mallon from Visit Scotland and Martin Addison from Craigatton House and Courtyard. I don't know, I feel like I need to say all of those words. So remember, yes, do find out what everybody else is doing. Share, and the chat box there, please do share your own experiences. It's all about collaborating, working together, especially on social media. And remember, there is those the support and resources from Digital Tourism Scotland. There's workshops across Scotland, one-to-one surgeries and other events, so check out that website. And as Richard mentioned, the full webinar goes up on the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/High Communications. We are going to be talking about Facebook and Twitter next week, so a little bit of a mini masterclass in those two particular channels. So we've touched on some of the things that you can be doing on there, but we'll really go into more detail next week. So that's probably one worth tuning in for, because as Leanne said, if you're going to pick one, Facebook's probably a good place to start. And we'll find out some of the little tricks and tips, maybe things that you don't realise that you could be doing on there to make more of it. You can follow us, on Facebook. It's harder to find than you might imagine, because it's full Highlands and Islands Enterprise, so but you will find it on there. We have been posting some previous videos with lots of advice, so please do join that conversation. And on Twitter, it's @High Scotland. So get involved there. But for now, I've been Julia Sutherland. Thank you so much for taking part. We'll see you next week.